If you can spend a little while after each online learning session, consolidating your learning, organising yourself, getting ready for the next session, you'll find your whole learning year goes far more easily. Online learning is largely about controlling, assimilating and using information. And so really a lot of what I'm talking about now is controlling the information, making sure you're not overwhelmed with recordings and notes and links and all sorts of material that you need, sifting it through, organising it into your own way of learning, making sure you're prioritising what you need and that you can leave behind bits and pieces that you don't need. So the first thing is make a calendar note if you think material or you know material is going to be uploaded after an event. So very often you'll be at a learning event and you'll be told the session is being recorded and it will be released, ready for you to look at the day after that learning event. Only make a calendar note to look at that though if you need it. If you feel content with the material you've got from a learning session online, don't feel obliged to go back and look at it all over again. It's going to be just a waste of your time. It's there if you ever need to refer to it. There's no need to feel that you have to go back always to look. You're online anyway, so you might just as well think about other things you might want to do. It could be in a session that somebody has mentioned, something you might want to read or look at, or a link to something online. So it's a good idea to think about, is my online reading list absolutely as good as it needs to be? And if you have an online reading list, the chances are you could put notes in it. So you could maybe make some notes against some of the recommended sources about how you might use your reading list more effectively for your assignments or for the next online learning event. Google really is your friend. So again, as you go through, if something's been mentioned, a quick Google is the easiest way to do it, or whatever search engine you're using. So use it as fluidly as you can. So if you're going to wiki something, for example, you're not going to assume that Wikipedia is the final word in anything, but it's going to give you some clues and hints of where to go next. So see your online virtual learning environment as more than just that one session. See it as a whole plethora of material that you can delve into straight after a session. If links have been added to a chat function, for example, so you're given several URLs, it can be a good idea to have a quick look at them straight after the learning session, because you're in the best position then to think, is it worth my while to follow this? You probably not get every link that's recommended to you during a learning year. There's lots of other things that you'll want to look at, but being able to look at the half a dozen links you've been given during a session, making a judgment, and then perhaps putting into your notebook, just copying across the links that you really want to be using. It means that you'll have a much more effective list of links and you won't waste time going back to half-remembered sessions with half-remembered links when you're not going to be able to make an easier, quick judgment on them. Making connections after any event is a good habit to get into, whether it's online or whether it's in the real world. So after any learning event, you're going to be thinking about things like, for example, how does this learning event link to the next learning event? I've just listened to a lecture, so what questions have I now got for the seminar? I've been in a seminar, how did that help me work out what questions to ask next? Or how does this help me move forward in the next assignment I've got to do? But it's also a good idea to connect with people. You know, if you thought somebody was asking questions that were really interesting or was talking about something in an online event that links very well to the next project you want to work on or the next assignment you need to complete, that's somebody you may want to get in touch with after the learning session. And of course, because you're online anyway, it's very easy to do that and have a chat with somebody about what they're doing and how maybe you can work together. When you've finished an online learning session, particularly if you haven't been able to take much of a break, it's a really good idea just to stop and just look somewhere else. Get a drink, walk around the room, get some fresh air, look out the window, whatever it is. Take a short break, but then make sure it's a timed break. It's only a few minutes, and then come back. And if you can, always allow yourself time to organise your ideas and to condense your notes. Notes are always better if you work them, rework them, and keep on reworking them until they're ready for an assignment or revision. Very often the chat function on an event will stay open after the event. If it's on Teams, it'll be open for ages. On Blackboard, it might be perhaps time limited, but it's worth knowing whether it's going to stay open or asking for whoever's leading the event to make sure it does stay open after an event. It allows you to ask more questions. It allows you to have a sort of type chat interaction with the leader of the session or with other students. And it also, if you know it's going to happen, it means you can go back to that session a day later or a few hours later and see what was chatted about after the session finished. It can be a really useful resource. Ideally, any seminar or workshop or interactive session is going to be social to some extent. And giving this a chance to happen is often very helpful. So if you're given a break for 10 minutes halfway through a session, you might want to think, okay, do I really want to take a break and leave and come back? Or is it better if I just stay in that room and just chat to whoever's still sitting there online, waiting for the next part of the session to happen? So often chat will become slightly social as well. And you'll find you're talking about things slightly off point, but just as a way of getting to know each other. So see if you can make it an online social space if you think it would be useful for you to do that. If you think about assessment when you're learning as you go through, it will save you so much time later. So thinking about exams, thinking about any assignments you've been given, just make sure that you're framing everything you're doing online around developing and deepening your knowledge, but also using your learning towards an outcome that you recognise and that you understand and you've thought about before the event, and then you reflect on after the event. And finally, when you've done all of that and you've condensed your notes and you've thought about it and you've got everything connected, if you can, take a break completely away from the screen. So just move away and take some time away from it. It doesn't take more than a few minutes to get your brain back into being ready to go back to whatever the next session is. I hope these 10 things that you can do after an online learning session will help you to move forward productively with your learning.